Okay, I'm answering the question. Court bouillon. What is court bouillon? Court bouillon is somewhat of a vegetable stock that's got a couple of herbs in it, a few peppercorns, and a little bit of vinegar. Usually when I make it, I put a pinch of sugar in it if I'm going to be poaching fish in it, which is one of the biggest things that this item is ever used for. Later on in the course, it comes up 3 or 4 times that we use it, but it's kind of it's included in the stock and sauce class because it's one of those aromatic liquids that we use in cooking, okay? Court bouillon basically is, and I need 1 bulb of garlic too for this. Better yet, let's use some whole garlic cloves, you know what I mean? This is a combination of onions, carrots, celery, a little bit of lemon, some thyme, some bay leaf, some whole peppercorns, and we're going to put a little bit of garlic in there. We're going to put whole garlic cloves in because as they cook inside the liquid, they'll get tender enough to eat. Now, I'm going to cut the vegetables in such a way so that, let's say I was going to serve and make a poached salmon in the court bouillon, and poach the salmon in the court bouillon, which we'll do in the poaching class later. And we have a specific dish in this course, in the poaching DVD, that shows you how to utilize the court bouillon for poached fish. So assuming that we're going to do that, that's how I'm going to cut the veg, all right? So you want to cut the veg so that it looks a little bit nicer than just chopped up veg like you have in the rest of the stocks that we make in this particular class. So beginning with, let's say, the celery, I'm going to cut them all on an angle and at a thickness level so that they will be conducive to being served on the plate as part of the garnish, like with the poached salmon, for example, okay? And cut them on an angle so there's a little bit of a slightly artsy look to the vegetables. And just throw that in the pan. And do I have water back here? Yeah, we got water. Now the onion, sliced. Now when I say sliced, we always mean from stem to stem. We never mean across, which would produce rings or half moons. So sliced onion does not mean rings and half moons. It means sliced from stem to stem, like this. Stem to stem. So when you see a recipe or an ingredient list of mine that says sliced, that's what it means, you see? Usually when you slice it, you get down to a certain point, then you turn the onion like that so you can finish it. Let's give this knife just a pinch more of an edge. Okay, there's your onion. We'll throw that in there. Now the carrot. This would be one of those cases where you don't want those big, huge carrots. You want a smaller carrot because then the vegetable will appear better on the plate. You don't want a carrot twice the size of a quarter, something the size of like a silver dollar. You won't be able to navigate it into your mouth on your fork if you're serving it as part of the garnish. Okay? Again, I'm cutting them a size that would be more conducive to being served on the plate as part of the veg. Again, I'm cutting them slightly on an angle. I'm only doing this, again, because I want to serve these vegetables as part of the dish, okay? Which you can or can't do. You can do that either way. Normally, I like to serve boiled potatoes and the court bouillon stuff, and then maybe some other veg, some broccoli or whatever, mixed in with the poached fish, okay? So you got that, and I'm going to take a lemon wedge. I'll put that in there. I'm going to take a few pieces of whole garlic. Put that in there, and that'll give it a little bit of flavor, and then you can actually serve the poached or boiled garlic as part of the food too. And we're going to put a few bay leaves. Now bay leaves, you want to be careful you don't crush them up because this is something that you would probably take out before you served it on a plate because you don't want a bunch of little things all over the plate, like pieces of bay leaf and stuff like that. It's not that edible, you know. Same thing with the peppercorns. They will settle to the bottom, of course, eventually, so that when you're removing your fish and your veg and preparing to get it onto a plate, you wouldn't scrape the peppercorns off the bottom. Now, the alternative to that, in terms of the thyme, the bay leaf, and the peppercorns is to put them in a little piece of cheesecloth and wrap it up, and that's called, tie it up with string, or just tie the cheesecloth so all of it stays contained within the cheesecloth. Then you can just pull the bouquet garni out of the bouillon. You don't have to worry about navigating through the stuff. And we'll make a bouquet garni in the soup class, which is the next class you're going to receive. So there's a little bit of dried leaf thyme. You could use fresh thyme with the branches and just throw them right into. And I'm going to throw a few peppercorns in here. And I'm going to throw some salt in here. Being careful not to put too much, because you may end up taking some of this broth and reducing it slightly. And if you go back and look at the principles associated with the lesson in this class about reducing and thickening agents and liaisons, you will learn, and if you haven't already, that when you reduce things, you never have them seasoned with salt before you start reducing them, because they become salty or as they reduce. So you be careful how much salt you put in here if you plan on reducing the bouillon at all later. Now I'm going to put a splash of vinegar in there. And we're going to put it on top of the stove. And that's all we have now is just a bunch of veg, a little bit of lemon, and the celery, carrots, onions, some whole garlic. And that's your primary ingredients for a classic court bouillon. Now, we'll put this on the stove. And we'll cover this up with some cold water. And we'll bring this up to a simmer. This is another case of you're not going to have very much scum, if any, coming off here, because there's no meat in here, and these are just vegetables. So there's your court bouillon, and we'll make this a 2-take lesson within this class about the court bouillon, and I'll bring you back in about half an hour to 45 minutes to an hour when the vegetable is cooked and we've maximized the flavor from the vegetables into the liquid. Okay? So we'll be back with that in a few minutes. Okay, the court bouillon vegetables have boiled about an hour and 15 minutes. I let them have a chance to cool down a little bit, which demonstrates for you that, let's say you were going to use court bouillon and these vegetables. Let me show you how this all looks on the plate, see? So you'll understand why I cut them the way I did. They look a little bit better when they're cut on an angle, see? If you have broccoli or asparagus and boiled potatoes rolled in parsley and butter with your salmon, and you take some of this broth and finish it up with the salmon, which we will do in the poaching class. But I just wanted to get a good idea what that looks like. Let's just put some of the broth on there. Let's say you were serving this in a little bit of a soup plate. See, you could put a substantial amount of this broth into a big pasta bowl or something with a whole poached trout or a piece of salmon fillet or something like that. Okay, and be careful about the peppercorns and the bay leaves. Okay. You don't want anybody breaking their dentures or anything when they're eating this now. So obviously you would season this before you put it on a plate. But there is the court bouillon vegetables and the juice itself, all right? So have fun with your court bouillon when and if the time comes for you to use it, which you will do in the poaching class. When you see what that salmon looks like with this and how I finish this with fresh herbs and butter, you'll probably end up using it. It's fairly inexpensive, quick, and delicious. There's your court bouillon.